Hello everyone, Splimey here today. I'm going to be talking about the sequel to one of my favorite games of all time, Spelunky 2. And I'm also going to be talking about why I don't think it is really an achievement as a sequel, despite pretty much everyone thinking the contrary. It's definitely an unpopular opinion, but I got to be the dissenting voice here. I really don't understand the praise for this game to the level that it gets. I think the first game was much better with its design goals and philosophy. So I just want to get right into that. I think one of the things that turns me off from the game is just how it has a level of tedium and repetitiveness, and you really feel this in many parts of the opening levels, like the mines specifically. It's very boring to go through them. And doing things like challenges, it's just very boring. And a lot of enemies seem deliberately made to waste your time. Moles and lizards being especially guilty of this, where they have strangely high health pools, like 3 hits, whereas in the first game, in comparison, it's most enemies can be killed with one, say for like the spider mini boss, but at least that gave you something. It's really a shame because I don't understand. It's kind of a waste. I think that a lot of this problem that the game has is because it's a bit overstuffed. Play the first game, and for the most part, it has really good balancing where you don't feel overwhelmed or it doesn't feel, I don't know, enemy design or like trap placement. Things don't really feel superfluous. Whereas in the second game, everything's sort of coded to make it as aggressive as possible, unnecessarily so, where everything's really, in like a cynical way, just out to kill you at every turn, which I don't really think is a core gameplay mechanic of like good Spelunky design. Like in the first game, I think it's more. I think as roguelikes, it should set out more to punish poor player judgment and to let players make mistakes than to actively go about trying to maliciously kill. And if you see some of the patches and revisions that they've done, I think that kind of confirms it. I know that they had to patch out how many moles that they were spawning originally. Even Derek is not really one. I don't think he really changes his games that much in terms of difficulty because he likes the challenge aspect, which, fair to him. But yeah, it's too much in this game. I really think that he went a bit overboard, and him changing some of the spawn lengths of that, like how many moles are spawning on screen, or I think the lizards also. I'm not sure, but I think that speaks volumes. Also, they had to change traps in the jungle because the gold traps with the bear trap with the gold nugget in it, that apparently was just almost impossible to see. So clearly there were some balance issues, and I think even they had to admit it. So, it makes you wonder the stuff that they didn't really concede to, how bad that is. And, I say it's cramped and overstuffed, but in many ways it's also lacking a bunch of things that the original had. And it leads to that repetitive feeling. And one of the things that bothers me is that there's no real level moods. I mean, seriously, play the first game and you'll be shocked at how many cool level moods that, in my opinion, really change up the game and make it fun. Whether it's the undead level mood, the kind of dark moods, the snake pit, spiders. I think there's ones where it gives villages in the jungle. There's some that sometimes you'll have like I think like a beehive in the jungle as well. There's a lot of variety. Whereas in the second Spelunky, it's just so repetitive. It's the same thing, and it's even purposefully done this way, like with Quillback, sorry, as a boss for the first section of the mines. It is always the same near the end of the level, and gosh, does that add to the tedium. It is so repetitive. It gets so boring to fight him. And even Olmec in this game is also just the fight is so much of a chore that it's a mark of skill to learn how to skip the fight, and you won't see that in this footage because I kind of suck at it. But yeah, it's it's such a pain. It's terrible design in my opinion. But we'll get onto that maybe later. Another thing that bothers me so much is if we're talking about malicious game design, which I think this game is kind of guilty of. Actually, I think in many ways it's very guilty. Power packs and like items that are not as good. It's some of the design choices are genuinely alien to me. They baffle me. I don't understand how they could approve of this or think it was, in any way a real an engaging sort of gameplay decision to the player. It's really disappointing. Power packs in particular, I don't understand why the decision was to make every one of them explode. And I've talked with my brother, who's a bigger fan of this game than me, and I think he sort of concedes my point, even though he likes the game and defends it. The power packs don't have any balance. I don't know if there's a single reason to pick any power pack over the jetpack, which basically makes the other power packs like mostly useless unless, situational, but you're going to ditch them pretty quickly for the jetpack, which I guess is fine, but I think it's a missed opportunity because the hover pack is very fun and it's a cool idea. And I think it would have added something a little interesting to the balance if maybe the upside of owning the hover pack over the jetpack was that maybe it didn't explode. I mean, I think that would be a cool trade-off to where maybe a player might even consider using it over the jetpack because not having that is, that's such a boon to your run that could really help you out. But instead, they just make it so every power pack explodes. And I mean, it makes you question, do they even need these power packs exploding? They didn't do it in the first game. It just seems like a weird design decision. Maybe it's good, but it just rubbed me the wrong way. Like it was excessively cruel about it. And the one aspect that I think is inexcusable is the telepack, which honestly does get me annoyed because the telepack is one of the coolest item changes in my opinion. And I think that it really had a lot of potential. What is very stupid about it is the fact that they map the use button to your jumping button. That is just, I'm sorry, it is ass backwards design. Actively just a jerk move. I don't understand why they did this, especially when I'm playing it. When I'm either playing it on PC or controller, there's free buttons. There's anything that you could use to. There's so many buttons. You could come up with a million different alternatives basically for using the telepack, but mapping it to the jump button, literally the button you are using about more than any other besides walking. It is so easy to accidentally just teleport yourself into a wall. And on accident. It is so easy. So much so that the telepack to me is just basically worthless. And I know there's some people who are maybe skilled enough to use it, and you could argue that it's just skill that you need. But, I mean, purposely making a suicide, sabotaging item that is borderline impossible to use for, even experienced players, I don't understand. To me, that's not good game design, and it's not even good challenging game design. It's really just almost like an excuse to just make something worthless. I really don't understand the need to do that. And a lot of this cruel game design, you just see it where it can be excused as difficulty, but to me, Spelunky was never really about what I call like asshole design. But it's filled with a lot of it, like stun times being boosted like crazy. Stun times they're so strong. You are knocked out by the tiniest thing, and you are out of commission for more than enough time to get killed, 99 times out of 100. Just it's baffling to me, some of these game design choices. Instead of changing any other aspect to make it difficult or to give you a challenge, they just purposefully sabotage you for making even a tiny mistake. And the first Spelunky really wasn't like this. I mean, it could be punishing, don't get me wrong, and yeah, I'm sure there's bullshit deaths here and there, I've had them. But really it wasn't, I don't think it was generally a jerk about it, and I've survived things in Spelunky 1, even when I made, a pretty big mistake. I've been able to survive things, and sometimes you don't, but in Spelunky 2, more often than not, it's almost certain death. It's just a ticking time bomb about how long you're going to make it. It's very, very stupid. Also, Curse, that's another baffling design decision where it is absolutely cruel, because after a certain point, you're not allowed to... Basically, being cursed and having only one hit point makes the game borderline impossible for average players. It's almost impossible. Once you have that, your run is borderline over. You can try and get uncursed at an altar. Good luck with that. And even if you do, and you're trying to get more into the end game, the altars all but completely disappear, and especially at the secret ending, there's none. So you have to, and it's very easy to get cursed. That's the other thing. It's not like it's not something that is like very it's not always easy to dodge. It's very easy to just fall into it on accident, and after that, well, you're not gonna have a good time, and it really does kill runs in a way that I think is just cruel. It's unnecessary. And seeing that and thinking that perhaps there could have been a more interesting game design choice where you're cursed maybe until you exit the level or something else. I mean, at least with poison, you have a chance because every level usually has like a pet to save that can give you the health and heal you of the poison. I'm not crazy about it, but at least it has a bit of a fair component. And I like that. That's a better game design choice where you might have a chance to recover. It's just, it forces you to pay attention. Now, I don't exactly love all the choice with the poison because, like in Tide Pool, where it's really easy to get poisoned, enemies blend into the tile set. Which, while it's very beautiful, I love the look of Tide Pool. Uh, it's just it's so easy to get poisoned there too because enemies can like camouflage themselves, which is, I mean, it's fine, but I wonder if that almost contradicts the philosophy of like in the first Spelunky, everything was readable and very visible to you. Everything had great outlines. It was really you making the mistake. In fact, the first game I would say is in some ways more of a puzzle game with some, resource management, maybe some like strategy. It's more of a puzzle game than it is purely like a reflexes platformer or something. In any case, though, this jerky game design is just very common, and I think that it's more prevalent in the game than people like to admit. And it's very annoying to see games praised simply for being unbeatable or hard. Like when you look at the Steam reviews, and almost no one's played the game past 5 hours, and they're calling it like the greatest game of all time. I mean, what is this? What I'm sorry, I don't get the mentality. I don't. And if you're wondering, like I've sunk probably a few hundred hours into this game. Not as much as the first game, but I've sunk quite a bit of time, like an embarrassing amount, for a game that I'm not really crazy about. And I played it a lot with my brother as well. That's what helped motivate me. And you might ask why someone who doesn't like this game would play it that much. Well, I did it out of respect to the first game. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have put that time in because I really wanted to see if there was something I was missing. It was out of my love for the first game and really hoping that the sequel could tie something together. But unfortunately, I just don't think it does. Yeah, so cruel game design really bothers me. Enemies are very annoying, and most of the bosses in this game are lackluster to say the least. I don't think anyone really enjoys fighting Quillback for the 500th time. The fact you have to do it so often and there's no variety. I mean, it's just, the first game is much better about giving you variety. Every run generally feels more like an adventure. You feel like you're actually doing something. And it has a great balance between handcrafted and procedurally generated. But maybe they just wanted to appeal to streamers or something. I don't know why they made things more linear. It's frustrating. I hate the boss design. Quillback is so annoying. It's just a boring fight. It's not hard. It's just boring. Once you know how to disarm him or whatever, once you know how to juke him and whatever, throw a bomb, do whatever to kill him, it's just kind of a waste of time and resources. It's boring. Same with Olmec. It is sort of fun the first time you deal with it because it's a subversion of the first time you fought him in Spelunky 1. And it does throw you for a loop. It definitely, it's pretty well done in that regard, but it's too long. It's too long, and it's too annoying to have only at, like, I don't know, I think it's almost the halfway point of the game. Not really. It's, especially if you're going for like a longer run, it's really annoying to have that early on. And that's why there's a big skip that you can do, but that's also kind of annoying too, and it requires a lot of precise setup, bomb placement. I mean, I don't know. To me, Spelunky's never been about that, where the goal was to cater to the more advanced players and the people who thought like hell runs were the easiest thing on earth. That to me was not the point of Spelunky 1. And I don't think that should have been the core design philosophy of 2, but it really feels that way. At times, it genuinely feels like a community mod that someone made just to be cruel. and not really like an official game someone would release for the average gamer. God help anyone who's just like, mildly curious or interested, doesn't really have a lot of time to play this, but really wants to beat it. Good luck. Like people complain about like Cuphead, but that is a breeze compared to trying to really unlock and find any of the secrets in this game. Good luck if you're just an average Joe who like does not have a lot of time. It's I've sunk way more time into it than I really should have, and I've only gotten a little bit into the secret ending. I've never been able to like fully beat it. It's so hard. But yeah, and like there's just things like moon challenges, the moon and the sun challenge, like to add on to that, like annoying bosses and things and stuff that are linear and they just take up your time. It's like so much of your run is just setup. God, I hate that. Spelunky 1 does not feel like that when you're playing through it. It doesn't feel like the entire run is just set up for things, usually. It feels like an adventure. I mean, yeah, if you're doing like hell runs or certain, I don't know, modifier challenges, it can be some setup, but it's not like 2, man. 2 is just, it's centered around this. And you can criticize me by saying, well, all this is optional. No one has to play it. But that's also, I feel like that's crap. If you're going to put content into a game, you are making it with the expectation that players are going to want to find it. They're going to want to play it. I'm not saying you have to make it easy or accessible, but don't be a jerk about it and waste their time. I mean, I think that's where I lose respect for game designers when they're fine with just wasting player time and treating their attention span like it doesn't matter. Like I have other things in my life I can do. A lot of people have other things in their life. It's really not fun to have to do the moon challenge for like the 500th time when it's not a test of skill, it's not a test of really any intelligence. Anyone can do it. It is literally a time waster. You are literally just moving blocks around. You are just tunneling through dirt and moving blocks, and it's the same thing. There's no variety. There's nothing to test you in any sort of way. The Sun Challenge has a bit more of a test. It is kind of hard, although there's some pretty brain dead formulas for getting out of it. Still can be pretty difficult, and it's like an instant kill if you even remotely mess up, which again I don't think is great game design, but I understand it. But having to do it over and over, it's just, I don't know. There's really no fun to it. I don't know if anybody finds those things to be the fun aspect of Spelunky 2. It feels great when you beat it and you get through it, but then you have the realization of, oh, that was just the setup. Now I got to deal with the real challenge. And maybe you like that kind of focus. Maybe that's your zen. More power to you. I like the game to a certain degree. I'm trashing it, but I do. There are genuinely some things I do like about it. I don't think it's like the worst sequel on earth. I think that some of the additions are actually really fun. I like what he's done with a lot of the characters. There's a lot to love about it. It still is much better than the average game being made today. It's better than the average indie game. It has a high level of polish in many areas, and you know, props to them to sticking with their guns for making a challenging game. But just as Derek loves to have difficulty and to be uncompromising, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be compromised with my opinions or my thoughts on this project. I really do think that it has problems and people should be honest about it. Other things that really just bother me are like it's like the music in this game is very annoying because it's great. I really mean that. I think that the music for both Spelunky 1 and 2 are amazing. They're wonderful. The music is great. But the biggest problem, again, it's like Spelunky 2 has a lot of things going for it, and then it throws it out the window or just does something a little wrong, and it rubs you wrong enough to where you don't want to interact with it. And that for me is the music. The music in this game it's based on a system where basically there's not a lot of it, but it's sort of dynamic and reactive to what players do, which is great and it sounds good, but the lack of variety drives you crazy. It's the same songs for every stage, and unlike the first game where you would have certain variations, because you're going to be playing this game hundreds of times, and you're going to be going through some levels hundreds of times in order to beat it or reach whatever goal that you have. It's really frustrating, and I think it's not a good compromise. I would have rather had the first. Because to be honest, as cool as the dynamic music is, a lot of times I don't notice it enough to where I think it matters. And I'm sorry. I think that's just the truth of it. So it's a bit disappointing. I love the music in itself. It is great. They did a fantastic job. The compositions are great. You should listen to it, but unfortunately, I just don't think there's enough variety there. And you could say that you should just turn off the music, but I don't. I really don't want to turn it off. I shouldn't have to. It does suck that I'm more interested in just like putting on a podcast while I'm playing than actually listening to the music and the dynamics. I shouldn't have to. I don't have to do that with the first one, but you know, it is what it is. So it's just gonna have to do, I guess. And I've gone over like level moods are a disappointment. They added, I think the only one that's new. I think they only added one new level mood, and it sucks. It's just the level being bigger, and you only get a little more time if you can find a leprechaun to explore it. And it's just, again, it's just more. It's like wasting your time. There's so many things in this game where it's like, oh, we're not really going to add much more content. We're just going to do something to waste your time or get you killed. And on a side note, this isn't related to this point, but like getting you killed, the hitboxes on those rock dogs, absolute bullshit. I don't care what anyone says. It's so poorly implemented. I know that it's supposed to be a challenge or whatever, and you're supposed to be good enough to do it, but seriously, like screw off. Whoever designed and implemented that, it is so stupid. You'll be like lined up just enough to land on their back, and then they'll turn in a hair second and just kill you. They'll kill you instantly. It's so frustrating. It's stupid. So, on a side note, it's just this game is just lacking the focus of the original. It's not as tightly polished. It's just too focused on challenge. I think that it doesn't really respect the player's time, or really respect them or their thoughts. It's it really is depressing. And the end game, in my opinion, is also disappointing. This is spoilers for anyone that is still interested in the game, which is fine. I think it's fine if you want to still go play it. I wouldn't recommend it, especially if you've never played it. I would recommend Spelunky 1 first, because if I had played this game first, I definitely would not have given Spelunky 1 a chance. And that's a shame, because it's one of my favorite games of all time. But for me, this game is very disappointing in the end game section, which is the Cosmic Ocean. Full disclosure, I've never beaten it. I've never gotten, I think it's, what is it? It's like 99. I think it's Cosmic Ocean level 99. That's the last one you have to do. And I think you have to survive 95 levels, because it starts when you get into the Sunken City. I have gotten somewhat far in, like, I've gotten somewhat into the Cosmic Ocean. I probably made it maybe 20 levels if I was lucky. It's very hard if you've never seen it. It's kind of a crazy concept, and I think it sounds better in concept than in execution. Basically, what it is it's a weird cosmic amalgamation of every kind of tile set, enemy, and layout that you've encountered so far, but it's put in sort of a weird 2D, almost retro dimension, like retro gaming dimension, where you can wrap around the screen. There's no borders. Sort of like if you've ever played old games, how you would, if you moved to the far right, you would just come to the left side of the screen. Your character would emerge. That applies, but it also applies for enemies, items, traps, and you're stuck in this weird dimension. You have a very limited time to get 3 orbs. You have to whip them or hit them in some way, and then get to an exit. And there's like a weird cosmic jellyfish trying to kill you. I have mixed feelings about this. I think it's a bit of a disappointment, and sort of is a testament to it's cool in concept, but I think it's sort of a testament to just the lack of really any kind of creativity in this game. Like, I'm sorry, like real creativity that separates it from the original. In the original, the Hell Run was so fun because a lot of people probably didn't even know, like playing, that there was actually a secret level, because you have to do a couple of secret tasks in the first game to get it. And it's really fun, and you get a brand new world. It's 4 levels that are very difficult and kind of challenging, but it's worth it. And it's not like a tedium necessarily. Like once you get to it, you know what to do for the most part, and you can figure it out. And like nothing feels that great than beating hell. It's so much fun. The second game is not really about that. If you want to do the Cosmic Ocean, you got to commit like an Olympian. It is so hard for the average person, and I'm not really, I'm not fantastic by any means, but I've put in a lot of time. I certainly have trained as well as I could, and I've done my best. And my brother, who has a lot more diligence and love for this game, he's gotten much further into Cosmic Ocean than I have. Even he hasn't beaten it. It's so hard to just stay dedicated or want to do it, which is a shame because like in the first game there was nothing that was going to stop me from getting to the hell run and doing it. I really had that much of a love for the game. I really wanted to see it through and beat the final level, and it was difficult, and I really had to shape up, but it definitely felt worth it. Cosmic Ocean, I really don't think I'd feel that much beating it. Like seeing it, I already know like what the ending is. Not that it can even really be called an ending. Another disappointment. It's just whatever. It's supposed to be for the challenge in itself. I guess it's supposed to be almost like a Zen experience, or I don't know. I think you're supposed to meditate on it, something stupid like that. In truth, I really don't think, I just don't think that there's much depth to it. It's kind of just lazily cobbling together everything for 95 levels that you have to beat in a row that are extremely difficult, and it's so easy to die to the simplest thing. Like the ultimate bullshit. It's like a bullshit mod that you would have to it's like a bullshit Mario mod you'd have to go through back in the day, but it's 95 levels, and that's not even including the time that you have to take setting up your game, doing all the weird secret achievements, doing all the bullshit challenges in the base game, hoping that you'll have even a chance of beating it. And I'm probably not going to convince anyone who actually really loves it, and as maybe they've beaten it, and maybe I just don't have the dedication, but maybe I just come from a layman's perspective. My perspective does come from someone who loves the first game immensely. I really do care for it. I love the first game. It's so great. I wish there were more roguelikes or just indie games or just games in general with that level of dedication. But alas, I just don't think it's here. I don't think it's here in Spelunky 2. And the ending to me it feels sort of hollow. I mean, I still accomplish probably more than many Spelunky players do. I don't think many Spelunky players beat Hondoon or even get the bow, to be honest. I don't even know how many players get the bow there. A lot of players probably don't even beat the base game, the game's base level of, I think it's Tiamat. I think you beat her. That's like it. But it's, you know, I don't understand why I see like perfect reviews across the board and on Steam. There's so many perfect reviews from people who've barely played the game. And if they get that out of that, that's fine. Good on them. I'm not hating. If you really like it, that's awesome. I'm sure people make fun of a lot of my game choices. I'm not like perfect. I'm not gonna pretend I'm the paragon of artistic taste, but it does strike me as a bit strange. I can't help but feel it's a bit disingenuous when I see perfect reviews from people who have only played it for like less than 5 hours. And I know some of that is just people don't have the time, but why even review a game positively if you haven't even put in the time to get a good understanding of it? Like, did you really put in the time and play it and understand why it was great? Or are you just signaling to other people that you've played this game and you think it's great because you read a review? Or it's, and also there's the shame. Like, I don't know if it's Dark Souls syndrome, but there's the shame that's often associated with not being able to beat like a hard game or to complete difficult challenges in video games. No one wants to be like the Cuphead journalist, which I understand. No one wants to be like that guy, like raging about a game that you're clearly not prepared to or qualified to complete. And that's what separates video games from any other artistic mediums, is the interactive nature of it. It is interesting and great. I like that aspect of it. But come on, guys, we can still hold game developers accountable if they're just clearly messing around with you. I don't know. Maybe it's a Death Stranding effect where just gamers are just, I don't know, maybe they're easy to fool with clearly developers just wasting their time and really not respecting them enough. I mean, I know that's fighting words, and I'm not saying that, I'm not saying you can't enjoy it. I'm just saying personally, I feel a bit left out. I don't understand it. I really don't understand how people can just look at absurd difficulty spikes and just asshole game design and think that it's brilliant. Especially with Spelunky, it's a little, to me, it's a little more egregious because the first game is designed so well. The first game, in my opinion, is one of the most perfectly made games ever, especially in the roguelike or indie sphere. It would definitely crack my list of, like, top 10 games of all time. It's so good. And then you see the sequel and it's floundering, where the first one just had like a perfect stride, a perfect pace. The first one was great for both beginners, casual gamers, and advanced gamers. It had something for everyone, and it wasn't malicious. And I think if you simply took the time, you could truly see everything that there was to see in that game and feel like a badass accomplishing stuff. But in this game, I don't get that feeling. You really have to be an Olympian of an insane degree. Not even, and it's very hard because it's not a game that, in my opinion, encourages you to really love it. It's not one that really respects your time or shows you any sort of dignity with your choices. It just seems to be maliciously trying to kill you half the time. It's not respecting you for making like intelligent plays. There's so many things that will block your path or impede your progress. Don't even get me started on like the lava drill. That's one. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I guess I just don't have anything more to say about it. I don't really understand all the praise for the game. But if you enjoy it, that's fine. So yeah, I guess that's it. Spelunky 2 is just always going to be a mystery to me. But if you never played the first one, please play that one, because in my opinion, much better. All right. Thanks, guys. Splimey out.